Hey, everybody, it's Everett with Ohio for Freedom, the program that is for the foreseeable future, focused on talking about things that are in the church that should not be in the church, and the firm hope and belief that some of those things will be removed and the church will be in better shape at some point in the future. As promised, I will be joined in just a moment by Robin Torgrimson from the Mega Maniacs podcast. She's come on here several times. She's been putting out episode after episode after episode with new and explosive information, and we're going to try to recap a great deal of that. But folks, we have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I won't be long.
And without further ado, I'm going to bring in my special guest. How you doing, Robin? You doing okay this evening?
I'm good. Yeah, thank you.
Good. I got to meet one of Robin's sons just a moment ago. Quite handsome, looked well-mannered, and so that was a privilege and a treat. And we'll say hi to Patrick, Kimberly, Laura. Ooh, looks like Pastor Dan's in the house, and Ryan is in the house, and Mary Ann's. We got some people in the house. So, folks, listen, like, share, and subscribe. But share. And Robin, if you've heard me, you know that I have no idea how long these programs go, but we're going to try to stay within that hour mark if we can. And folks, as you know, that means absolutely nothing, but we're going to try, right, Robin? Because I've got coffee and then I've got a backup ice cold glass of Coke. So here's what I thought I would do, Robin, is I'm going to show this for me is where this little journey has started. This is the title page from the Unction, Pastor Ray Curry. And I was bebopping down the road, living a happy life. And I saw this come up on my YouTube feed on my phone. And because I've been privy to some information for a long time, this really caught my attention. But Robin, do you have any comment about Pastor Ray and the Unction and any role that he's played in helping you get this message out?
Well, I had never heard of the Unction either, to be completely honest. But I love Pastor Ray. I think he's awesome and he's funny on top of it. But love the scriptures that he uses, and I love that he just tells it like it is. I think that for me, being in human resources, that I tend to be a little bit more politically correct at times.
Yeah.
But I think that he tells it like it is. But initially, how all of that happened was Matt from, Lord have mercy, what is that?
Learn to discern.
Learn to discern. Matt reached out to me and had asked me if he had permission to use the audio that I had used in episode 2. And then Pastor Ray actually follows Matt at Learn to Discern. And then Pastor Ray reached out to me and asked me if he had permission to use it. And so then it just kind of took off after that. But it had been up for a couple of months, and I actually had sent it out to a couple of podcasters to see if they wanted to use it, but nobody did. So
well, I think when Pastor Ray, I think Matt got a lot of traction with that, but when Pastor Ray I think that particular video got like a couple 100,000 views. So listen, first time you were on, oh, hey, Amy is in the house. She has made it live. So Amy, we are glad that you are here.
Hi, Amy.
Amy was in my youth group, Robin, many years. Well, for her sake, I'll say just a few weeks ago. But she's a wonderful gal, and we're really glad to have her. So listen, the first time you were on, we intended to play this, and we didn't. So lest that happen again, this is one of the clips that once it got picked up, really put what you're doing on the map. So I'm going to play part of that, if I may.
You didn't.
Right, I didn't call the meeting, but I was in the meeting. I'm sorry.
Here's not we.
Okay.
I know who called the meeting because I told them to.
Yes.
Because I knew you wouldn't. And you didn't.
But we're ready for baptism.
No, you're not.
I can. Well,
No, you're not.
Well, let me walk it through you.
It'll take me 10 minutes to prove to you you're not.
Okay then. Whatever you say, sir.
Are you being smug with me?
No, I'm not. I'm saying whatever you
Don't.
say. I'm not being smug. No, I'm not.
Don't.
I'm not.
One more person grins at me, one more person smirks at me in this room, it will be the last one of you that does it.
Okay, Robin, this goes for like 5 minutes, and for the sake of time, I want to stop there. But do you have any comment about that clip, lest anybody should think, oh, that was just a one-off or a bad day or something like that, or any other comment you have?
Well, no, in fact, that if you listen to the entire clip, I think the average person would just be in disbelief that that somebody was talking to someone like that at all. But then to find out it's at a church and it's, the pastor that's speaking to his staff that way. But this was a normal Tuesday meeting. And in fact, most of the people that were in that meeting said that that was a pretty mild encounter, that many times people would be leaving there in tears. They would be coming to my office just to blow off some steam so that they could continue to work for the rest of their shift.
And as HR director, you would be a first stop. And so in just the 4 years that you were there, you can say authoritatively that what we just witnessed, that was not a one-off. That's like par for the course ongoing, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, people would be stopping on their way into work, especially on Tuesdays when they had to be in these meetings, because they would be physically ill because the anticipation of what they were going to encounter in these meetings.
That's just unbelievable to me. Okay, for sake of time, and Janelle says that is 100% abuse, and we agree with Janelle. Let's get to the other one. We can't play all of it, but here we go.
In the right place for the camera shots.
Yes, sir.
Could we wake up?
We're trying to, Rod.
And you people want to go to Israel and do a shoot? You can't do one on the property.
And just for sake of time, we're going to, why are I paying y'all to get whatever, volunteer to do y'all's job or something like that? Do you recall the episode numbers that those clips came from?
Sure. The audio, the first one you played is episode 2 of season 1, and it's entitled Typical Tuesday. And then the video is episode 12 of season 1. And I don't remember what I called it, but it's episode 12.
Very good. And Mega Maniacs now, it's not a bunch of wrestlers that comes up. Go to YouTube, type in Mega Maniacs. It'll come up. Well, Marianne's going through the same thing. She's getting her program started, and that's just the way that it is. Okay, so I've made good. I've actually played at least part of those clips. This one you might not be expecting. And I can't tell you what episode this is from, but it is from the first season, and I am going to just let it play.
And so I was sitting in my office one day, and a staff member, and this was very early on in starting there. So I started there in February of 2019. So I would say this was definitely before summertime of that same year. So anyways, back to the story. So this person that rushed in my office and was full of terror and fear worked back in that area. And when she came in, she said, I just saw a demon in executive wing. And when I say that, I literally have goosebumps all over my body, because I'm back reliving that experience. And I didn't know this person very well, but I knew her to be very honest and trustworthy and very much a woman of God. And I knew that she was under some stress, but.
Okay. So Robin,
I got chills again. I just got chills again watching it, because it takes you right back to that moment, and just seeing the terror on her face, it just, and hearing, the fear in her voice, it made me scared too. Like, what are we dealing with here?
And that was in executive wing and I had to clip that, for sake of time. But this
Sure.
lady, well, first of all, if she's working in executive wing, she's probably pretty sharp, pretty smart, pretty pulled together,
Oh,
like
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
pretty normal. And she
Mhm.
comes into your office and doesn't even have an appointment. She just comes in, shuts the door. And do you mind recounting? I know we just heard it, but what did she say when the first thing out of her mouth when she sat down?
Yeah, she kind of barged in. So my and I say barge not in a negative way, but
Right.
that was kind of how she bound into my office.
Yeah.
She immediately shut the door. She sat down and actually I don't even know if she sat down, but she came up to my desk and she said, "Robin, I just saw a demon in executive." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" So I'm trying to have her talk me through. And she said, "I know what I saw." She sat in my office very terrified. She didn't even want to go back to her office and get her purse and her things, but she quit that day.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
no notice, no anything. Quit that
Let's
day.
let's talk about executive wing and A wing and all of that. Your office was in A wing or executive wing, or where was it?
So my office it was in a wing, and people equate them to the same thing because from the inside of the building you do have to go through a wing to get to executive wing.
Gotcha.
But you can get to executive wing from outside, but you have to be a Parsley or someone that works in executive and has access to park in their back parking lot, and get behind all the gates and have all the access, and I didn't have any of that access.
How did the demon get in there? Did they have a pass or did they have a um
I'm pretty sure the Parsleys brought it in there. Yeah.
oh, okay. Now, and I kind of know the answer to this. Now, were you able to, like, in the morning just show up and just go to your office all by
What do you
yourself?
mean?
Like, how did it work for you to get into A wing, I guess, to get to your office?
So for me, I would go. I was one of the first ones there
Yeah.
in a wing and executive wing because my kids came to school, so I just went in when my kids went into school, and I started work probably at 7:45. So
Okay.
I would walk them into the school because my badge gave me some special access, walk them into the school, and then I would have to go through one set of doors for the A wing that I had access to, and then I had to unlock a first set of doors and then another set of doors to get to my office.
But you could buzz yourself directly to your office.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, were you ever in A wing or executive wing and you had no way out?
So with executive, yes, because I didn't have access back there even after being there for so long, and my boss's office was back there. So
Right.
I had requested access several times, but they didn't give it to me. So I would have to be buzzed back anytime that I needed to be in exec. But
Yeah.
there was a time that I was working Dominion camp meeting. It was my first year there, 2019,
Right.
and I what my job for Dominion camp meeting was to prepare and serve food for all of the executives and the special guests of the
Right.
Parsleys.
Right.
So I was back there trying to get everything prepared back in the executive conference room, and was trying to then leave because there were more things for me to get and I couldn't get out. I had to wait for someone to find, because I didn't have my phone with me. I
Right.
didn't realize that I needed to have special access to actually get back out of there. So
Right.
yeah, I was stuck until someone else came.
So I just want to double down on this and we got to keep moving. So you could get to your office But you couldn't get into your boss's office, which that's understandable, but you could not even get into the area that your boss's office was ever the whole time you were there unless somebody buzzed you in.
Correct.
Okay. And during camp meeting, they gave you like temporary or special access or somehow got you back into executive because you were doing food. But I thought I just heard you say you were literally in an area that you could not leave unless somebody else opened a door and got you out.
And that's the Parsley's quarters. So their quarters entails there is a kitchenette that is where the assistants or someone like me would help prepare food.
Yeah.
But it's separate from everything else because the Parsleys don't want the other areas to smell like food. So the food and everything is prepared, but then there's the executive conference room and then the quarters, and the quarters is essentially a very, very nice, 2,000 square foot apartment that's got, a library, kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom. I mean, you could live there.
But you were in an area that you were literally like trapped. You
I
could
was trapped.
not, the doors are locked from the inside.
Yes. Yeah.
Is
And
that-
you can't get out without access.
Is that even legal?
I don't know. I honestly don't know the answer. I would assume that I was not the first one that had happened to, but
Right.
it was, I was kind of panicked. More
Oh,
not
yeah.
because I was necessarily scared, but because I had things to do and I knew that they were counting on me to get things done. And I was stuck in there, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes before someone finally came, but nobody even knew I was in there.
So you're doing what they've asked you, and they're not paid. This is like volunteer time during Dominion camp meeting, and we got to get off of this. But you're back there in the special area. But once you get into the special area, you can't even necessarily get out. What?
Well, it was Hotel California. My access got me in, but I could not, there was no access to get out of there. Right.
Okay. We can belabor that, but folks, that is weird. I've been in a lot of churches. I understand that you can't just walk into the comptroller's office or the senior pastor's office or any place, but I've never been in any building anywhere that if you're in it, what if a fire broke out, but that you can't get out unless somebody lets you out? Okay, I'm going to play a next clip. We got to keep this. So, folks, listen. Robin's first season is all, I believe, Robin, it's you in front of the camera sharing personal experience with some video clips and other visuals. But your second season are these interviews, and they're long format, they're not rushed, and they're very, very natural. I would love to be able to bring a highlight from each one. There just isn't time, but since I know this individual, I got to play this one. Here we go.
My sons that I was talking about, I had him working with me, because he's getting that age to, so I got him a little job with me and he'd go out to the property. Well, the first time he went out, Rodney had kicked their dog like really bad. And I couldn't find my son. He's real timid, and,
I mean, so that
What do you make of that, Robin? This is Pastor Dan. He's if he says it happened. What do you make of a senior pastor or supposed preacher that I'll just shut up. What do you make of that?
Rage, control, and rage. And just being completely overcome and overwhelmed by anger, that's rage. That is the only thing that came to mind because that was a shock when Pastor Dan said it during that interview. Him and I had not discussed that. So I was as shocked as everyone else was when they heard it. But being around people my entire life that have control and anger issues and narcissistic traits, anything that gets in their way, they are going to impose their will, and they are going to make sure that you feel their wrath, and nobody is immune to it.
His son, we don't have time to play the whole clip, but his son was so petrified, terrified, that he was hiding out in the little fencing around the filters for the pool. I mean, the kid was traumatized. It's crazy. I'm going to let a little bit now. You ask a question here, and I'm going to let that play.
It sort of makes sense then, the things that you hear and see in regards to Rod. But did you yourself ever witness Rod demonstrating these same behaviors, either towards you or towards anyone else?
Yeah, it was towards his wife.
Towards his wife. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll just, Robin, any comments?
Well, I would have liked to get some elaboration on that, but I could tell how apprehensive Pastor Dan was to even say that out loud. So I didn't force the issue when we were talking. I felt like if he wanted to say more, that it would organically come up. But this is also the testament of several people, including, Carol, including people that have worked closely with the Parsleys, that the abuse is not from Rod and from Ashton is not just towards staff members and volunteers and Valor students, that it is also very much a thing at home.
Yep. And folks, if you think it's okay to kick your dog, just type yes in the comments. I don't think everybody's going to do that. I'm going to play this next clip, Robin. We're just going to keep this was also from Pastor
like
Dan.
that. And there was two circumstances with Elder Harrison's wife, and I told my wife about that. I mean, and I give it this description as, one time when I came with the bill, she started sitting close enough to me that I could smell both her perfume and perspiration. It's like, whoa, this is way too close here,
Yeah.
And I basically excused myself, said I'll come back when here, that type of thing. But it was like, was that really something that she was trying to pull on me?
Mm-hmm.
And then with her again, with myself in a church service, it's like, whoa, this is way too close, and I'm thinking, man, there really must be something with this whole sex scandal talk that I hear, at World Harvest.
Any comment, Robin?
Well, I just think that the environment there is definitely hypersexualized. Whether you are engaging in it right then and there is yet to be seen, but I think that most people are exposed to it, whether it's something like that where it could very well be someone testing the waters to see if you'll say anything or respond to their behavior or what they're doing or what they're saying. Or it's, hearing the things that are going on in the ministry with very high level, high ranking people, or just anybody in the organization as a whole. I think that you get some exposure to it.
And I wasn't there, so I'm not reluctant. I thought I heard the word Harrison. So was that the name of a staff member at one time at World Harvest? Was there anybody named Harrison?
Yes.
And they
not
probably
during my time, obviously, but he was the minister of music, I believe.
Yeah.
And he was later, sent off to kind of start his own ministry, I believe, in Kentucky.
And was that on good terms, or was that, or don't, if we don't know, we don't know, but was he
Depends
ever
on who
asked
you
for?
ask.
Oh
Depends
my,
on who you ask.
I got you. I got you.
I think behind closed doors that there were some very tumultuous and probably more negative tone conversations, but I believe that for show in front of people that he was, sent off with a blessing, if you will. But I saw that happen even in my time where people were treated super terrible. It's like they're cursing them in private, but blessing them in public kind of deal.
Right. Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case.
Mr. Who, I believe the answer is yes to that comment, that
Yes.
question. And folks, the Apostle Paul said, it is reported commonly that there is fornication among you. He was talking to the Corinthians. And so from that scripture, some things, folks, some things you've heard. I'm not saying anything that I don't know, but it's okay to ask questions. And I will just say certain names, as you've talked to a ton of people, Robin. I've talked to a few people, actually more than just a few, but there are certain names that continue to come up over and over and over again. I'll just leave it right there. And here's another name. This one might be beeped out.
He's an elder, and he had some issues with his sexual behavior. He was a married man, and there was a student or something that, got impregnated by him. And we didn't know that at the time. And he started getting really friendly, coming to my house and all of this stuff with my wife. He had her do his hair, that type of thing. But we found out that he was guilty of a lot of stuff. And
it was found out that he was having a relationship with one of the students at Harvest Prep or at the college.
Harvest Prep. So
and he was an elder.
Yeah. And that one was covered up.
Robin, let's just stop right there and we'll resume. What is the significance when you ask the question of Harvest Prep? Just in case there's anybody that's not familiar with this. Why is it relevant if it was Harvest Prep?
So Harvest Prep is the pre-K through 12th grade school that is housed in the same building as World Harvest Church.
So if Pastor Dan is talking about this elder, his name probably starts with a K. I don't have any problem with it, but for whatever reason, impregnating a student, then he is talking about impregnating a minor child. Mm-hmm. If that was a Harvest Prep student, correct?
Correct. And I will also say, not to interrupt you, but when you say that these names can continually come up, the Elder Harrison and this other elder, their names have come up several times and continue to come up. And I will also say that the people that are bringing up his name or these names have also indicated with proof that they had made reports to the Parsleys and to their cohorts and inner circle that this behavior was happening. And instead of these elders being reprimanded, sent for counseling, kicked out, taken out of their position as elders, it was covered up and they continued to abuse other children. Or I don't believe Elder Harrison was was children, but several people that he had encounters with, some of them Valor students.
Okay, so we'll leave Harrison and his creepy stuff, extramarital creepiness with legally of age students. We'll just set that to the side. But I thought I heard you just say that there are credible people that have come forward. So this isn't gossip, that numerous times, certain people would be involved with children that were attending Harvest Prep. Am I right so far?
Absolutely.
And it would be, the complaints would be made up, and Mr. Parsley would have known about it. Is that right, or is that wrong?
Absolutely.
So Parsley caught wind of stuff, at least enough wind to do a full-blown investigation. Doesn't look like that ever had, but more likely he flat out knew about it, and Parsley didn't do anything about it. Is that
Yes.
accurate?
It seems to be very accurate, because the people that reported it, they were kicked out of the organization. The actual victims were kicked out of the organization, and then these elders continued to stay, and they had victims after that. If the elder, and I'm reluctant, I'm not reluctant to say his name, but because we beeped it, I'm going to leave it at that. And I know that he has since passed away. Okay. So, but I know in that situation, and I am working on having this person as a guest.
Yes.
But on Mega Maniacs, but if they would have taken her and her parents' report seriously, this other elder probably would not have gotten to at least 3 other girls that he ended up molesting and abusing. And this person, his name has come up more than several times.
What did they have on your rod that you let that go? What did they have? I'm doing a little audition, Robin. I want to be an actor. I'm just acting. So, but I just asking a question. How in the world would somebody, the head of any organization, let alone one that's calling itself a church, know that they have a senior person that is molesting children? They know about it. It's been brought to their attention, and they just look the other way, and it continues to happen. How do you justify that? Or it can't. Go ahead. I'm going to rant and go. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think of that person that allowed that to happen?
Well, first of all, they're as guilty as the person that is doing the behavior, because they're complicit. Now, anytime a child, and I want to say this for anybody being abused, if you know about it, you should be reporting it. But especially children, I get almost enraged, because I know what it's like to be a child that is being abused, and people see signs and know that something is wrong, but they don't want to investigate it. They don't want to, ruffle any feathers. So instead of showing the child that they are precious, they should be taken care of, they should be protected, instead the perpetrator is protected, and they continue to live in this abuse, and then the person goes on to abuse more people and abuse more children. This now is my mission, to make sure there is accountability for all of these children and people in general that have been molested, raped, abused, but especially the children, because that has lifelong effects, and it shapes who they are as a person. It shapes how they view themselves, view relationships, view leadership, view the people that are supposed to be loving and protecting them. I mean, it is absolutely incensing to me to know that I even worked for a place that would cover this stuff up.
Oh, I can relate to that. I'm sensing that you're incensed, and I understand. I'm just going to buzz through some comments. Lynette says, now I'm very upset. Pablo says, aiding and abetting. Fear the Lord. You see something, say something. William Bleckley says, in other words, the world was living more holy than the church. And Janelle says, this just goes so deep. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. and teachers are mandated reporters. So, Robin, I have just a program note. We're not going to have time to get to an item at the end of the program called an open letter to Elder Canfield. I wish we did, because I have a, if we had time,
why don't we have time? Why don't we have time?
Well, I didn't have time to put it on a slide, but we could talk about
Oh.
it. If you're okay talking about it at the end, we're going to talk about it. But what I want to know is, Elder Canfield or Elder anybody, whether your name is Kelly or Jones or Smith or Huckleberry Finn or whatever, are you really going to look any of us? Am I raising my voice wrong? Are you really going to look any of us in the eye and expect us to believe that after two people have just done a little bit of digging around all the stuff that we have heard, and Robin's heard a lot more than me, but are you really going to expect us to believe that you didn't know and you didn't look the other way, or you didn't even go the next step and help shove it under the rug? Because Elder fill in the blank, I don't believe it. I didn't know I was going to say that, Robin, but I'm not unhappy that I said it. You have anything to add to that?
It's just disgusting to me. Anyone that can treat human beings in that way is disgusting, especially when we're talking about children, and especially when we're talking about a church and people more than the Parsleys were aware. Canfield knows everything. He knows where all the skeletons in the closets are and where all the bodies are buried, and he continues to stay by Parsley's side. And I think that what Carol said, and when I interviewed her, was very true, that they make sure, they as the Parsleys make sure that your hands get dirty, so that if you ever think about exposing them or saying anything, that the 100 or 1,000 things that you have against them, they have one or two that they just dangle in front of you, and you're so brainwashed and scared that they have all this power and all this money that you don't dare say anything.
Yep. And you mentioned Carol. That's in season 2. I think it's episode 5, but it's called Mystery Guest. And Carol is an extremely brave, articulate young woman. And actually, we're going to hear a clip from her interview right now.
That's a good way to state it. Did you ever feel preyed upon? Because that's exactly what it was. What I'm trying to expose is a spirit that anybody can have. Anybody can prey on you. Anybody can be a predator. But in my situation, it was 2 male staff members there that preyed upon me. I was 17. I already knew him. He had been there for years. We kind of had formed a big brother, little sister relationship with each other. It never got inappropriate. I mean, I think I met him when I was about 13 or 14. So I was really, really young. But when I was 17, we exchanged numbers, and that's when things turned. He started talking to me. He started asking me.
How old was he? Not to interrupt you, but how old was he? 25 and you were 7. Okay.
Yes. Another female in the room, another woman. I'm already being abused by a man.
Robin, obviously, I had to clip that for sake of time. So would you tell everybody what Carol is describing there?
So what Carol is describing is that at some point in time, people were noticing, as in other, higher ranking people in the church. I can't remember if it was a youth group leader, but someone noticed that Carol and this other person seemed to be engaging in a relationship that shouldn't be going on. And they did go and report it to Rod. They then called Carol just yanked her out of I think she was in dance rehearsal or something like that. They pulled her out of there. They took her into Rod's conference room where it was Rod, it was the perpetrator that was abusing her, and I believe Elder Harrison was in the room, and another male. They did not call Carol's mom. They did not have another female in the room. She was in this room. And mind you, that conference room was the area where I got locked in and could not get out, by the way.
The same conference room?
Yes, that was the conference room. Yes.
So if she'd have been scared or just like, this is freaking me out.
She couldn't have gotten out. She couldn't have gotten out.
Okay, listen, I've got her because we're gonna let the rest of this clip play. I just want you to hear.
Significantly older than me. Now you put me in a room with this man, his bosses, my authority, and it's all men, and I'm sitting here by myself. And I felt, after it all happened, that in itself was traumatizing. I had to cry about that. Like, you were in a room alone with a bunch of men, and
a room
you
you couldn't get out of.
Now I'm 33. If I knew a 17-year-old girl in a situation, I'm not coming at it like asking her questions. I'm wrapping my arms around her because she can't give consent yet. She's not old enough to.
Robin, that's the room that you can't get out of?
That's the area. Yes. That's the same area that I was stuck in.
And so this young lady at age 17 is being preyed upon by a 25-year-old staff member. She spills her guts to another former staff member. She doesn't know what to do. And it results with her being called into a conference room with 4 other men, one of them being Rod Parsley. And Parsley does nothing but intimidate the 17-year-old girl. Am I overstating that, or is that kind of accurate?
Very accurate. Very
Rod,
accurate.
how many staffers did you fire as a result of that meeting, Rod? How many did you fire? Oh, wait. How many did you promote? How many did you? I'm sorry, Robin. I wasn't planning on the. Ooh, that just frosts my. Okay, we're gonna just do this. But I'm gonna play another clip. But what you have any words, Robin? You have any words before I play the next clip?
No, it just is, when you start hearing all of these things, like I said before, when I started doing this, I did have some compassion, but then after finding out Carol's story and these other young people and children and these other people, and all of it's getting covered up, and people are aware that it's happening and there's nothing being done. Nobody is making sure that Carol's mom is aware, or these other young people's parents are aware. I mean, it's just,
oh yeah, and they
what
hid
are
it.
we doing?
They hid it from Carol's mom, right?
Absolutely. Yes,
and she was like a lifer there. She was as in and as faithful and plugged in as you could be, and they hid it from her. Rod Parsley hid it from her, correct?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, Everett, is that even if she wasn't underage, okay, she was, okay, but even if she wasn't underage, why are we not caring enough that we're making sure that these sorts of things, at least if we are made aware of it, that we aren't addressing it correctly?
Okay. I'm going to say this. You got to give this a couple of minutes. Do not misunderstand what I'm going to say. I'm going to play yet another clip from Carol. I am so impressed with this young lady. She's incredibly brave, and she just doesn't care. She's fearless. But there's something that I disagree with about her, and I disagree with her for a good reason for her, if I can say it that way. So bear with me. I'm going to play this clip.
They were getting paid, but no, they weren't like a World Harvest Church worker. But they're filling in for one. Those people they were all male. Those people that were friends with him, he then would start bringing them around and forcing me to hook up with them. And if I didn't hook up with these guys that I have no idea who they are, I barely want to hook up with him. Now I have no idea who these men are. If I don't do this, he's going to physically put his hands on me. Those are my options. Those are my.
And Robin, just for the audience, she's not talking about some guy out at the club or the bar. She's talking about somebody in the employment of the church, correct?
Yeah, they were a musician there.
Okay. So this is on Parsley's payroll. Okay.
Choices, or I'm going to get choked. I'm going to get hit, whatever. So go along with this and do what I want. Sometimes it would just be hanging out and like nothing sexual would happen. Sometimes it would just be me and him and they would just be there and nobody would do anything with me. But sometimes he'd always would be like, can try to get a friend to come, try to get, oh, you should bring a friend. You should do like just totally just the weirdest behaviors, and all under the guise of if you don't, then this is what's going to happen. There was one particular night I just didn't want to. I didn't even want to be with him, let alone. And we were on our way to the hotel. Mind you, this hotel is being paid for by the church. His gas, where he goes, where he stays, the church is taking care of everything. And they're just providing this for this to be even easier. And we're on our way to the hotel, and I can't remember what we were saying, but I know I was I had an attitude. I wasn't feeling it. I was not in the mood. And he then proceeded to open the side car. We're on the freeway. He opened the car door, my car door, and he said he would push me out if I didn't, get my act right and go along with this entire thing.
Oh my gosh, Carol. Golly, I'm sorry. I mean,
Robin, I want to play the end of that clip when she talks about getting hands dirty, but do you have a reaction to that so far?
well, I mean, Carol and I, her and I did have a discussion before we did the interview, and that was something that she had not shared with me. So the shock, is real because I did not have any clue that was even a thing. But she had said that morning that the Lord was telling her, like, you just need to say it all, because I don't believe that she was the only person that this was happening with. And neither does she, and that's why she felt compelled, and that the Lord was like, it's time to just get all of this out in the open.
Because otherwise they're going to continue to justify the perpetrator and victim shame the victim, blame the victim. Mm-hmm. I'm going to let the rest of this play, and then I'm going to show you a certain court ruling.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. That's why it's at even my own expense. This is why we don't share, because then you've got to show your hands. My hands are dirty, just like their hands. I'm a product of my environment. I was raised in that environment, in that toxicity. My hands are just as dirty. I'm not coming on here saying my hands are so clean and I don't know what's wrong with them. No, you get dirty when you hang out there.
Okay, Robin, do you have a comment? Because I got a comment. It's going to take me a minute with the last thing that we played there.
Well, I would say that I think that what Carol was articulating as far as hands being dirty, I think that is probably the best way for her to describe it. And I think anybody that has been groomed and abused, especially, sexually, that you do feel like you take on some responsibility for some of that, especially if you're an adult. But I also think that you have to recognize that there was a lot of grooming that was happening, and also that there were real consequences from this person that was doing this behavior with her, but also based on her experiences with the church when she was underage, she not dare go and say anything because she was going to possibly be in a room again where people are just telling her that to quit the behavior and to keep her mouth shut.
And it's a room that you can't get out of unless you agree with them. Paul Terry, I just want to read this question. This begs the question, has anyone taken this to the state attorney general's office? Needs to be done now. Paul, please pick up the phone tomorrow, and anybody else pick up the phone tomorrow. But yeah, any comment, Robin, or but that was Paul's.
The answer is yes, Paul, and but the I will also say that the more people that can bring attention to this with the AG's office, the better. And I'm hoping that, you know, we're doing enough to get them to pay attention.
I want to share this, Robin. You know, you and I have talked a lot, and I shared with you early on. My first pastor, he started off. Guys, see if this sounds familiar. I was brand new, young, and full of fire, and I got kind of hooked up or sucked into this church. And it seemed really exciting for a bit. But he started off as a pastor. Within a few years, he was an apostle, a prophet, a pastor, he was everything all into one. We had to get out of there. We got out of there. Thank the Lord. 7 years later, I'm on staff at a real church, a very healthy church. And I get a call from a prosecutor from my old hometown. And I am called upon to do my civic duty to simply testify at my old pastor's trial. I had no idea that there was any charges being brought up, but as it turned out, long story short, he was convicted for 2 counts of rape, about 10 charges of sexual battery. There was some theft in there and child endangerment. Okay, I'm sorry to take this time, Robin, but I want people to see this.
It's okay.
I pulled up the charging document today, and it's a little hard to read because it's small. But I wanted to read this language if if there's any way that she would see this, because here's what the judge said. The jurors found my former pastor. Yeah, you love having that on your resume, don't you? Guilty of this sexual battery. But it said, and I got it, my eyes have to be just in the right position. Having the said, and it, I did blank out the guy's name because after 17 years, they let him out of prison, and that was a long time ago. Having knowingly coerced the victim to submit by means that would prevent resistance by a person of ordinary resolution, or knowing that the victim's ability to appraise the nature of or control her own conduct was substantially impaired in violation of the Ohio Revised Code. If I can boil that down to redneck, and I'm sorry for taking so much time, Robin, at your expense, but what that judge, who was way ahead of his time, was realizing, it's called clergy sexual abuse. When there is the authority element in there. So Carol, your hands aren't dirty, okay? Sure, this is not like, hey, I went online and I'm looking for a hookup. I went downtown, went to the bars or whatever, and I'm looking for a hook. No, this is somebody taking advantage of their position and their ability to manipulate and the laws. This judge here was way ahead of his time, but the law is starting to catch up with that reality. There's no such thing as an affair between a pastor and another woman in the congregation. That's not an affair. That is CSA. That is clergy sexual abuse, because there's a power dynamic. There's an authority dynamic in there, and it's not equal. It's not an equal playing field. Robin, do you have anything to add? That was a filibuster, but you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think the only thing that I would add, and I think I already said it, is that at least in this situation with Carol, and I'm sure in other situations with other people that have reached out to me, is that if you are aware of how Rod and his, henchmen deal with situations like this, then you would be very reluctant to even want anybody to catch wind of it, because again, it's the victim ends up being the perpetrator and the one that is reprimanded and or thrown out and shunned from the congregation, and then all kinds of rumors are spread about these people of why they're not there anymore. And so if you're in this situation, especially at World Harvest and probably at other churches where this is happening, if you know this is how the leadership is dealing with the situations, you're not going to say anything. And when you're groomed and you're abused, you are even less likely to say something.
Right. And Robin, just here's the thing. There's a lot of little bitty items that I wanted to just recap. I wanted to recap the Nazi sword, recap all the occult symbols on the sword that's hanging on the wall right now, Rod, or at World Harvest Church, and recap all these things. I got into this, and it's just, I won't say it was a quagmire, just like you can't just gloss over this, because frankly, there's people that never went to prison that should have, and there's people that never went to prison that need to, right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
And that is now the goal at this point. I mean, I want to still offer a platform for people to share their experiences, but the goal now is that there is some justice and accountability for people, children, for people that were used, abused, and discarded like trash from that ministry.
And the head and the leadership, which would be Rod and Canfield and all these guys, they've known about this, haven't they? I mean,
Absolutely.
And so they've been covering this up for years. And then what are we? We're at 56 minutes. I am going to play this clip because this was one of Carol's friends, Ashton. And so instead of people like Karen or Carol finding real help and the courage to deal with this, this is how she thought they should handle it. I'm just going to play
being
this.
there. I think that made it hard. And there was one particular service when I officially was like, I'm pretty sure I will never be back here. It was a Wednesday night, and it was a crazy type of service. The music was going. And at some point, Ashton got up on the platform and she took the microphone and she said, if you've ever been molested, if you've ever been raped, if anything's ever happened to you, the Holy Spirit says, get over it.
You got to let it go. Yes. You got to, we say it all the time, let go and let God. Yeah. Let go and let God. Some of you need to say out loud, I forgive blank. Right. I forgive my mom. I forgive my dead granddad. I forgive my aunt. I forgive my sister. I forgive the person that sexually abused me when I was 8 years old. I forgive that boyfriend that raped me.
And she just started going, now, Pastor, if you're familiar, I know you didn't go to World Harvest, God bless you. So you're enough.
Robin, I'll stop that right there. Do you have a reaction to that in light of what we've been talking about?
God, the Holy Spirit, nobody is telling you to just get over anything. This sent me over the edge when I saw this, and I had to go digging for that clip. I was actually shocked that they still had it up, because I think that anybody that is not brainwashed by this place would say, yes, forgiveness is a great thing, but nobody is telling you just to get over anything, especially when you're talking about childhood sexual abuse, especially in the formative years. And 8 years old is definitely in the formative years. And this shapes who people are and how they behave, how they have relationships, how they see themselves, and I can tell you, and I'm not saying that this is the case for everybody, but as someone that was sexually abused as a child, you end up having so many symptoms and so many coping mechanisms just to deal with what your reality is, that you end up in drug rehabs, you end up in alcohol addiction facilities, you end up trying to commit suicide, you end up trying to find anything that helps you deal with what has happened to you as a child. And until you can get to that core issue,
right,
and you're only trying to treat those symptoms, you're not going to have any peace or any freedom from any of that. And it's years of work, of the Lord working with you, of you going to counseling, of anything and everything under the sun, reading books, going to support groups, to try to start filling in those holes that are in your heart from everything that you experienced.
Yeah, that was so well said. That's so well said. Carol actually weighed in, only focusing on
Hey,
forgiveness
Carol.
and never accountability. Carol, I'm so glad that you tune in. And exactly that, just forgive. Here's my question. What about justice? You know, you can even forgive somebody, but what about justice? What about holding people accountable? What about part of a clip? But I didn't have time to grab everything, Robin, but we going through your second season, there's credible evidence that Ashton, the gal that tells everybody to just forgive, was molesting a young Harvest Prep male student when she was in her mid to later 20s. So is that her message to that young man that she was molesting? Just forgive me. Don't hold me accountable. Just forgive me. Is that how that works, Robin?
I don't know what her mentality is, but you know, the rules don't apply to them, and they have proven time and time again that they can behave any way that they want, and they seemingly get away with it. And I'm here to say, as long as there's breath in my lungs, that those days are going to be over.
If you have any information, if you have a story to tell, if you are tired of hiding and thinking that your hands are dirty when really you were completely a victim, you can email ohioforfreedom@gmail.com. I'm going to pass that right over to Robin. That one's easy to remember. Robin, how do they email you? I should have had that in the notes.
I need to, no, that's okay. I need to actually create a Megamaniacs email because my last name is so long, but it's R Torgrimson. So it's the R and then my last name, 2169@gmail.com.
And you can find it right on your YouTube front page. You know, we had stuff that we wanted to get to. I think we're going to kind of leave it right here. I think this is a good spot. We could have closed, Robin, on the open letter to Mr. Canfield, but I would just say this. I'm going to revisit an issue here. When I was on staff, and I was really, really, really blessed. Gosh, especially looking back, I felt blessed at the time, but now I know I was blessed. But I was on staff at a very healthy church, and I got the call from a prosecutor. And I had to testify in that trial of my first pastor. I had no idea that anything was brewing. And I want to say this. Even the 2 days before I showed up in the trial, I knew there was reasons why we left. I would have never believed that there had been any sexual impropriety. And yet the guy was found guilty of 2 counts of rape and about 8 sexual batteries. I mean, it was off the chart. And it wasn't that I was living in denial. I just didn't know. But Robin, I think there's a whole lot of people connected to this WHC thing that you can't say you don't know anymore. Does that make sense? I'm kind of,
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that there's a lot more people that knew or know, and but the problem also, Ever, is that there's so many of these people, young people, that are being trained up to go out and perpetuate this behavior at their own ministries. And so you don't have just a problem in Canal Winchester, Ohio. You have a problem throughout the United States. You have a problem throughout the world, likely. And I'm not saying they all came from this place, but there are many pastors that are getting their degrees at Valor. They're training and being trained up under Rod and David Amos and Elder Canfield, and then they are going out and starting these churches. And I'm hearing from these CHN churches too. My pastor acts just like this.
And I'm going to say it again. I had no idea that all this sexual stuff that was happening with my past. And seeing Robin, I like to think in my mind, even still, oh, that wasn't happening while I was there. Because I had no clue. But how do I know? How do I know? So anyway, we're going to do this. Robin, if there
can I say one more?
Yes,
can I say one more thing? Sorry.
You say anything you want. You're the guest.
But I also want to say that people that are master manipulators and people that their goal is to impose their will and control you, they know exactly how to appeal to you and your senses and the things that you're scared of, the things that maybe you encountered when you were younger. They prey. They find out, they learn things about you, then they prey, because then, and PREY, prey on you.
Right.
So how can they control you in the best possible way so that even if you get a glimmer of hope and a glimmer of courage, that you will be too terrified not to speak up and not to leave and not to say anything. So it's not just that people know, it's that these people are learning this behavior because it's likely happened to them, and then they're just repeating it.
And it self-perpetuates. Yeah. Well, thankfully, there's people like Carol that have broken that cycle, and she's not afraid.
Absolutely.
She's not afraid. Carol, your hands aren't dirty, but I think that attitude in the one way kind of serves, because it's like, basically, Robin, I feel like Carol is saying, hit me with whatever you want to hit me. It's not going to stop me. It's not going to stick. I ain't worried about it. I ain't afraid of you. And I mean, I just love that. I love that. Robin, we're going to close. There's some stuff we didn't get to. I think we got to everything that we needed to. Speak up. If you're out there and you haven't spoken up yet, speak out. If you've been covering stuff up, if you've been Mr. Complicit, Mr. Smile and Get Along, how long is that gig going to last, Doc? It ain't going to last. Okay. You want to leave a legacy? Speak up and tell the truth. Robin, would you close us out in prayer with any victim? Oh, sorry.
I was so serious, and then you start the Rod Parsley vernacular, and then I'm laughing again.
I'm going to interject this, and this is totally irrelevant. I've got the clip, but I didn't bring it up. If you want proof, folks, people say, why do you do that? Okay, go to that. What is it, Robin? The Silent No More, where he's telling people that all the founders released all their slaves or whatever. It doesn't have to be that clip, but that clip works perfectly. You know why? Because in that clip, he uses his genuine vernacular. He says his words the way he says his words. The reason I say legacy is because it's fake. When he talks like that, it's fake. It's put on. I'm sorry. Maybe that was completely off the beaten path, but that fake, he's trying to do like sort of a fake ebonics. Just talk the way you talk, pal. You're not fooling anybody. Sorry, that's a rant. That's a rant.
Okay.
So if you close us out in prayer, Robin, we really, and so you're going to have an episode next week on Tuesday, instead of taking a whole week off. And
I know. Can you believe I took a whole week off? My oldest son turned 18 yesterday. So then we had the Labor Day holiday. And so, yeah, I needed a week off, but you can imagine also even just this little bit that we've discussed, which is a lot, right? But in an hour and 9 minutes, multiply that over and over again. And this is what I hear almost on a daily basis. And I have to take time to, refill my cup, because it's a lot to listen to people, and especially the people that haven't really, been able to move forward and move past because of everything that happened to them there. And so it's just time that accountability and justice is served. That's it.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Would you close us out in prayer? And we thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I know everybody appreciates it. If you'd close us in prayer, we'd appreciate that as well.
No problem. No problem. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for Everett and all of the people that are listening. And thank you for blessing us and giving us a platform where we can talk about these absolutely horrible things that are happening inside a building that is supposed to be glorifying you. And instead, people are being abused and used and then discarded as trash. Please be with all of these victims that have been through this, not only at World Harvest Church, but at any church or any situation where they feel like some of this is their fault and they don't know how to move forward, and they're having struggles with their own mind and their own heart and their relationship with you, Lord. Please be with them, give them comfort, give them peace, and allow them to start this process of healing and moving forward. Please continue to bless Everett and I and all of the people that are involved that are really trying to shine a light on World Harvest, especially, and the decades-long abuses that have been happening there. Please help us to have a refreshed mind and a refreshed heart. Please help us to have a great rest of the week, and just continue to bless us and keep us close, and that everything that we do and that we say is in the right spirit, but that knowing that accountability and justice must be served. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Robin, really, really appreciate you. An hour and 11. Hey, we're getting, that's more of a respectable time. We're not there. Mega Maniacs, everybody. Robin will be off of her frilly vacation. She will be back in the saddle on Tuesday at 7:00. Make sure that you tune early. I'm going to say goodnight to her. Robin, thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
And we will see you soon. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And I'm trying to hit my little button. Good night, y'all.
I hear the sweet sound of freedom, and I won't be